Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is March the 4th, and a happy Wednesday to all of you. It's the middle of the week. We had a Texas primary yesterday on the Tuesday. Closed up. Some good news. Dan Crenshaw will not be continuing. Jasmine Crockett will not be continuing. The Texas primaries are kind of a pain in the butt. I experienced that yesterday. I voted in a model home in a neighborhood that was just built within the last 2 years. And there's this empty home in the middle of a street. So I literally drove down somebody's neighborhood street, parked next to a house, walked into an open door. And that's where they held the primaries, at least in my precinct, which is a weird, that's the first time I've ever voted in an empty house that was owned by like a development company. Very unusual. If you're in Texas, you didn't vote in the primaries and you didn't have a say in who you wanted representing you, whether that's real or not, is another animal. We've got some allegations that the machines and the voting is rigged. Shocker. We talked about that yesterday, but it did get done yesterday, and the choices that were made or selected for us will continue on. There's some news in that. Today's program is entitled Fog of War. Fog of War is the tunnel vision that happens in conflict, where we become focused on things. Some things become more obscure and difficult to suss out because of the actual smoke, the fog, the inability to see what's happening in real time. It makes a lot of us miss out on important information. And so today I want to kind of zoom back out. A lot of the news coverage, national coverage, mostly everywhere, is still fixated on what's happening in Iran and how that works. There's some backtracking and some cover that is trying to be run by the administration, trying to say that Israel had nothing to do with their hand. Got some clips about that. I don't think they made it any better just from watching it. Marco Rubio went out and tried to address that. Some of you are very upset that I played 2 minutes of a man's speech and then also Speaker Johnson, and everybody was on the same page. I think more likely they just didn't like the way that it hit with people, and so they tried it again. I've got some more evidence that politics is show business for ugly people. We have some localized corruption. Not localized, I guess domestic corruption. Christi Noem got grilled yesterday, and by both parties. It's always a bad move when you show up to the Senate and members of your own party and members of the opposition party both want to call out what a corrupt job you're doing handing away government money. That does seem to be the general theme for those in the Trump administration. I've had some pretty well-connected folks say the same thing to me, that essentially that the Trump administration, for whatever it's worth, Donald Trump panicked when he went broke the first time around and decided never to let that happen again. And so he's been doing rug pulls. He's been doing financial schemes. They have that Trump coin thing that has billions of dollars in it. And a lot of the people in this administration were like, oh, well, that works for Donald Trump. And that seems to be the signal from the top on what we can do. And so I think seeing what Christi Noem did with DHS and the fact that she was grilled about the amount of money she was handing off to friendlies, it is an indication of the type of people that are in office right now. It's sad. Doesn't mean everybody in the office, everybody in the administration is corrupt. But if you're handing out no bid contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars, it's pretty nasty. It's a pretty nasty thing to do. So we're going to get into all those things. Like I said, domestic, I think, is something we should not forget about while there's something happening. That is sort of the goal of a PR campaign when you start a war overseas, that you hope everybody focuses in on it and they forget about your failings. Like, I don't know, what's going on with the Epstein files? We got some of that as well. The Clintons were both deposed. Neither of them were very nice. They made some pretty decent points. Hillary is still as sharp, mean, shrill, and gross as ever. But it doesn't mean she's wrong. So we'll do all that in just a second here. Before we do, let's hear about Cove Pure. Folks, if you don't have a water purification system of some kind, you're probably drinking water that tastes like crap. I don't know why that is. I've lived in California, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas. I've lived for parts of time in Florida, Connecticut, Virginia. I think there's some other ones in there. I was in Mississippi for a bit. Water oftentimes doesn't taste that great coming out of the faucet. I don't know whether it's what we're doing or it's the groundwater, but filtering it makes a huge difference. You can use one of those little cheapy Britas, and sometimes they make it a little bit better for a while, and you're always buying new filters. Or you could buy something that really works, does a great job, and gives you a bunch of options. The folks at Cove Pure make an outstanding, no plumbing required machine. It sits on your countertop. It looks great. It's easy to fill. It's easy to set up. It's push button. I can always tell when my kids are getting water, so I know that they're drinking water, which is really important to us because there's a little ping when they push the ping button that starts spilling the water out into the cup. You can set the sizes. You can get your own 6 ounce, 8 ounce, 12 ounce. Maybe you're like me. You're always doing 5 things at once. You want to push a button, walk away, and then know that it's not going to just keep overflowing on the top of your water bottle or your cup. Check out Cove Pure. It's COVEPURE.com/KYLE. You'll save $200 on their countertop unit. We use it in a bathroom. That may be a great option for you if you want something upstairs. You don't want to walk down to a kitchen, or you don't want your kids walking down in the night to go get water, but you still want them drinking something that is going to be filtered out and not have pharmaceuticals and PFAs and microplastics. All kinds of different residues, fluoride, things like that. It's going to have a multi-step filtration. They call it the clear wave technology. There are several different filters that plug in when you get your unit, and all you do is you click them in and then you rock and roll. Very easy to do. About 15 minutes to set up one time, and then all you do is push the button. You want it hot? Great. You want it cold? Great. You want it lukewarm and room temperature? You can do that too. My wife is one of those lukewarm people. I don't know why she likes lukewarm water. Never made sense to me. But those are all options for you, and it really is convenient. It's the same price that you'd probably spend on any of the drip filters, but it's faster, I think, because you can do it on demand. It is easier to set up, and of course, you get it in hot, cold, or luke, which is a really nice feature if you want to be able to make teas or instant coffees and things like that. Check out Cove Pure. There's a link in the show description. Save yourself $200 on their unit, COVEPURE.com/KYLE. Those are all the letters. Let's do today's program starting now. It's actually an easy enough thing to spell that I can spell it out. I actually get lost in words sometimes if I'm trying to spell them. I must be like Gavin Newsom, although I won't claim that I had a 960 on my SAT. If I start spelling words out, sometimes I'm going like, wait, where are they going? Where are we going with this thing? But there's some sort of nice pattern when you have an 8-letter word and a 4-letter name, and it's all easily there, and they all kind of line up, and the vowels are alternating with the consonants. Is that a thing for other people too? All right. Let's start with discussion of the Texas primaries, because the midterms, we were told over and over again, if we screw it up, then we won't win the midterms. Let me give you the awful news, I think, right up front. I live in Texas 31. And so we had a slate of okay challengers and one really, really bad challenger and a dinosaur antique 1,000-year-old incumbent. I'm gonna let you guys guess in the chat actually before we roll into this. In Texas 31, my current federal representative is John Carter. He's a Republican. He's 84 years old. Just say that. He's 84. And he's been in Congress for 24 years. He is a 12-term incumbent. And he ran against a grifting turd named Valentina Gomez, a retired military guy, a young current reservist and or National Guardsman who's in his 30s, mid-30s, a Indian guy whose name is unpronounceable to me and whose background seemed like it was a scam. It was like realtor something. We had a field of about 9. Do you want to know how badly the incumbent at 84 years old? It's the only time anywhere on this planet that an 84-year-old whips a field of otherwise decent contenders half his age. It only happens in politics. So 84-year-old John Carter is going to be the Republican option in my district at the midterms. You want me to care about politics? You don't put a man who looks like he will be somewhere between 86 and 87 when his term is over and tell me that that's a good choice. There's nowhere that makes sense. Maybe the field of contenders, and actually there were decent ones. Steve Dowell looked like a good one. There were a couple of others that looked okay. That was my choice. Didn't even break 10%. None of the useful contenders broke 10%. And by the way, folks, it wasn't even close. It was like 60% went to the incumbent John Carter. Valentina Gomez, who is atrocious, who failed as a candidate for Secretary of State in Missouri, who carpetbagged her way down into Texas, assuming that a safe red state challenging a man who was in his mid 80s was going to be an option. She's not doing real well with this. So here is Valentina Gomez. I'm going to play it again only because I just think she's atrocious. And we have to, like, every single time I get these, I have to go back and filter out the damn song because she plays music in the background like a freaking teenager. Oh, maybe it's because she's 27. As far as I can tell, she has no full-time employment. I don't know what it is. I don't know what her credibility or capabilities are. Her claims to fame are she was born in Colombia. She moved to New Jersey when she was 10. She still has an accent like a member of a cartel. And then she runs around making videos talking about dirty Muslims and a bunch of other nonsense. And she's going to save your children from being raped and a bunch of other things that are completely illogical. She's got a National Guardsman brother. They were just criminally trespassed going to a John Carter speaking event the other day. So I don't know if she's just on her way to doing OnlyFans or like what the plan is. But this is the female version of Jake Lang. Jake Lang is the guy that got the crap beat out of him in Michigan the other day, running around in an ugly plate carrier. She's equally fake. I assume that her next move is go to Arizona. So Arizona, look out. You're probably going to have a Valentina Gomez in your midst running for office there, or maybe she will move to Florida. I don't really know. What she should do is F off and go back to Colombia and maybe find a job since her parents seem to be bankrolling her. I have no idea how this woman continues on, but you can see in her campaign expenditures, she pays out a bunch of money to what looks like her brother. All of her campaign expenditures go out to a Gomez, which sounds like it's probably her brother that's in the National Guard. Anyway, here she is claiming that she got her opportunity stolen by the party. I'll talk about that in a sec.
Texas, they're stealing my election by completely removing my name from the ballot. So if you don't see my name on the ballot, do not leave the polling site until they give you a ballot with my name on it.
They told me that I could not vote for you.
Really? So, and you saw everybody else's name except mine?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And you live in Bell County, right?
I live in Bell County.
Can you tell me the city of where you live, please?
Rogers, Texas.
Rogers, yes, that's part of the district.
You're the only one that scared them, so that's why they're coming after you.
Yes, and...
Yes, that's part of the district.
I'll be more than glad to meet you there and confront that lady in front of you.
Oh, I would love to.
I would love to do that, but I am actually
what
not
they're
even
doing.
in
They're
Texas.
stealing the election. They're helping John Carter, and the only way they can win is by taking me out of the ballots.
Yes.
No,
That's
the only way they can win is he was going to win hands down anyway, and the fact that she got 10% is actually pretty atrocious. Yeah, having the choral Madonna song in the background, awful, just atrocious. She was on my ballot. She was the number 2 choice. No, she was the number 3 choice. It went Carter and then Dowell and then her, and she was the worst choice on the ballot because she's not from Texas. She has nothing to do with Texas. She's a moron, as you can tell. And there's nothing American about that woman. There's no claim to value there. For those of you that think she's attractive, I don't even know what's wrong with you. Anyway, we had some interesting results that happened in this particular primary. So enough about Valentina Gomez, but she's gone from Texas, and not even close. What we did find out is that our Senate race is going to be very interesting, and I think this is actually a really important one. We've got John Cornyn, who is another sort of dinosaur type, and he went up against Ken Paxton. You know what? At the end of the day, both these guys suck. You've got allegations of adultery on one side. He was impeached by a politically active group. Ken Paxton is better than the alternative, but like none of these people seem like they're any, halfway decent human beings. So we've got John Cornyn, and we're going to see Ken Paxton in a runoff. We had the same thing that was kind of interesting. Another dirtbag out there in the San Antonio district, which is going to be the Tony Gonzalez race versus Brandon Herrera. Brandon Herrera and Tony Gonzalez will go into a runoff as well. So a couple of major runoffs. Democrats loudly and resoundingly chose a guy named James Talarico. So real quickly, we'll do this story here. This is coming from NBC News, kind of talking about some of the stuff that that was decided. And for those of you that really don't like Dan Crenshaw, he lost his primary, so he's not going to be continuing on. That was the end. He was elected originally in 2019, or started in 2019 rather. He was elected in 2018. All right, so in Texas, the Republican primary that's going to come up, it's going to be May 26th. So those of you that are in the Texas area, and we have a lot of Texas listeners, for whatever it's worth, you guys have another election to show up for. The election, the turnout was not huge. I mean, I think for the statewide ballots, I saw that it was maybe like 1.5 million total people in a state rather, that has like 20 million plus people. So we had relatively low turnout, as you'd expect. The primaries, they're not easy to find. I ended up driving to a primary location, seeing like 150 people outside of it. That was the Democrat primary headquarters, and it was 15 minutes in the wrong direction for me. Then I had to turn around and drive past my house and go to this little house, which was in a neighborhood, to be able to vote. So primaries are always kind of a weird animal, depending on how your state conducts them. And Texas does them by party, real specifically. There's no state sort of parameters for it. The runoff between John Cornyn, who's been in the Senate for 4 terms, times 6 years. He's been there, about as long as John Carter. And then our current Attorney General, Ken Paxton. We're going to see, I think, a runoff also for Attorney General. Looks like Dan Patrick, who was looking to be the lieutenant governor. He wanted to have the Republican nomination. He also secured that. Doc Chambers got a good chunk of the vote. I think he did as well as anybody could expect, but got blown out by Grabe Abbott. So again, the status quo continues on as usual. The interesting stuff is going to be where the Democrats ended up putting up. And I want to do some stuff on Talarico today, because he does represent maybe one of the more capable Democrats, and probably one of the scarier ones, in my opinion, just because I think he is a very smooth talking communist. And he uses the vestiges, the guises of Christianity to sort of pick up pagan talking points. It's kind of, I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second here. James Talarico took out Jasmine Crockett. So Jasmine Crockett, she was zoned out of her district when they did a redistricting. She had to decide whether she was going to run for statewide office or pick up and move into another district. And what she chose to do is run for Senate. She's mouthy, trashy, and not sophisticated, I think. She's also very fake, because she came from a posh school and she had a pretty privileged upbringing. And then she turns around and acts like she's like this ghetto hood rat chick. That's kind of weird. She's out. She's lost her seat in the House at the end of this at the end of this session, and she chose to run for Senate and didn't make it on the Democrat ticket. So that's that for her. Talarico, again, we'll play him a little bit. He does a lot of class warfare type stuff. He does a lot of kind of phrasing things in a dangerous way. So I think he's a substantial problem for people who don't pay attention and just want someone that sounds nice. I think he has all of the danger that Obama represented. Smooth talking, articulate, very palatable. He's bland. He looks soft and frail, but not threatening to women that might want to have somebody that just seems like a really nice man. And he'd be the kind of guy that would apologize to the criminal that's beating the crap out of your wife and taking her wallet and dragging her off to a car somewhere. That he wouldn't stop, but he would ask if everybody could pray for the criminal. That's not Texas, the way that I look at it. All right, so I want to do that. Actually, I think we're going to lead with that stuff, because I was thinking about, hey, how do we talk about Talarico? Here's Talarico in light of the terror attack that just happened in Austin. So overseas conflict kicks off, domestic people doing weird things. Man from Senegal decides to go and shoot people in Austin, and the reaction is, "I'm tired of thoughts and prayers." Listen to the conjunction that he uses. He says a bunch of things. I care about people. I'm sympathetic. I believe in the power of prayer. Jesus saves, blah, 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 blah. But, and everything before the but gets thrown out, because he's now going to give you the exception to it. And this is one of the things that Steve Friend and I always kind of key in on when we talk. You can hear somebody telling you, here's all the stuff you want to know, but here's what I'm really going to say. So I want to set that up as you listen to him. And he's talking to another wonderful grifter. There's going to be the Reverend Al Sharpton. Should we put Reverend in air quotes? Here are them talking, these two men talking about, how do we solve, the problem of a dude who came here from Senegal and then decided to do a what looks like radical Islamic jihad type attack on random people who were at a bar.
I frankly am tired of the thoughts and prayers rhetoric from our leaders here in Texas and in our nation's capital. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe prayer changes lives. I believe prayer changes the world. But there is something profoundly cynical about asking God to solve a problem that we're not willing to solve ourselves.
Does anyone believe that he believes in the power of prayer in this case? Does anyone believe that the things that he just said, they just seem so choreographed and rehearsed? And again, if you go into the mindset that politics is show business for ugly people, that's perfect. This guy doesn't win any beauty contests. He's not going out there with the male physique that's going to draw a lot of people's attention. He's not going to show up on a soap opera and be the heartthrob. But he is palatable, and he is non-threatening, and he's got, hair that's gone like that. He's chill. He reminds me of Beto O'Rourke if Beto O'Rourke wasn't as weird.
God moves and works through us. God has no other hands but our hands. We prayed, and God sent moms from both political parties to advocate in the halls of power for gun safety.
And if you guys are wondering about the moms who demand action, I think that the moms who are demanding action are just looking for their husbands to pay attention to them in the bedroom. That's my personal take on the name Moms Demand Action. I've been to these anti-gun rallies, these like town halls where the moms get up there. If you introduce facts or actual information about firearms, if you have any experience in law enforcement, they don't want to hear anything about it. What they want to do is have a mom Tupperware party talking about things and technologies that scare them that they don't understand. And then their recommendation is, how can we get rid of this thing that is scary, mean, right while, they don't even understand the legal definitions of the things they're talking about. And the greatest example of that for me was I went to a Moms Demanding Action gun safety town hall with my then representative, the since deceased Jerry Connolly in Virginia. And I was an FBI agent at the time. So I was carrying what Virginia referred to as an assault pistol on me. Now, it was just a regular Glock 19. But the way that the Virginia laws were structured in the state at the time, and they may still be the case, if you have a weapon system that is capable of accepting a magazine greater than 20, then that is an assault weapon. And so I had an assault pistol because I had 33 round magazines that I could stuff into my Glock. And so I'm sitting there with my assault pistol, and I may have had a second weapon. For some reason, I think that I had two weapons on me, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe one was in a backpack, and I think I just brought it because I could. I'm sitting there with multiple members of the Fairfax County Police Department in the room, and they all have assault pistols as well because they either had Glocks or M&Ps or similar, but they all could take, whatever size magazine you wanted. And then these women went out there and made a bunch of statements about fully semi-automatic and all the other silly, nonsensical BS that they didn't know what they were talking about. And when a couple of people stood up and, for God love them, they were like boomer type, men in their 70s who were irritated and wanted to have arguments with women in their 40s, which is a terrible thing to do because nobody wins. They went up there and they would say their piece, and then the women would like have them thrown out of the room, and they'd be super offended by actual facts about firearms, which were correct. The boomer guys were all right. And I thought, none of you people know that there are assault weapons that you're scared of in this room, all around you, and that you rely on those things for your safety. That you hope that men who are trained for violence and women who may use them in weird ways also and may shoot you instead of grabbing their taser, like they're all carrying these things. You're totally okay with the government having the monopoly on force, but in theory, you also think the government's not doing a good job. So any of these things are logically inconsistent. I had these same arguments with my father-in-law, and I find them amusing. I'm going to continue on with this Talarico thing. I just want you to know, and then I'm going to play another one of him being like just a really scary communist. He uses these social constructs. He talks about class warfare in a way that's really palatable, and it sounds really good. And what you get is a lot of women clapping. So this is a man who is on the feminine side, both politically, but also I think just physically. He's a kind of a feminine type dude who is presenting a very soft, feminine face that women will vote for. And that makes him really dangerous. For whatever it's worth, this guy is the most dangerous person running for for a statewide office in Texas at the moment.
We prayed, and God sent lawmakers with common sense gun safety proposals like universal background checks, red flag laws, closing the gun show loophole. As you know, Rev, Scripture reminds us that faith without works is dead. And so the time for thoughts and prayers is over. It's time for us to act.
Kind of interesting. Faith without works is dead. And yet the entire sort of premise of Protestantism was that there was this big fight over faith and works. I don't know, man. Maybe I just knew too much about reading about the Reformation back at the time. So that's his claim. Remember, he's going to do some scripture. He's going to make things that sound really good. I'm going to go grab another clip here because I didn't even have enough room for all these little things. This is one where I say he is a dangerous communist. This is the way I described it. If you guys follow my X feed, you probably have already seen this.
Well, for 50 years, the religious right, a political movement, that is the perfect description for it. They convinced a lot of our fellow Christians that the most important issues were abortion and gay marriage.
So those people have actually been correct, the slippery slopes there. What's really interesting is he said our fellow Christians. Did you hear that? He's talking to Stephen Colbert, who's kind of like an elite communist. Is there anything that makes you think that Stephen Colbert lives in an overtly Christian or moral way? Is that something that he's ever done? Other than when he was making fun of Bill O'Reilly, which, by the way, was his best persona. You know what's funny? Just since we got Steve Colbert going to be on the screen in a second. Colbert used to do a thing called the Colbert Report, which was on Comedy Central. It was a comedy show. And he would do this over-the-top Bill O'Reilly impression. And it was the most popular thing that he did by a lot. The reason it was popular is the same reason that Ron Swanson was the best character in the show Parks and Recreation. The left likes to make fun of alpha male types, people who are overtly conservative, who are patriotic, who, say things, whether they live them or not is another story. But there's a reason why Ron Swanson was the best character in Parks and Rec. There's a reason why the best work that Colbert did was when he was pretending to be someone that was actually really likable. That was like just gung-ho America. There's something lovable about that, even if you think that Bill O'Reilly is kind of a fool, which I kind of do. Anyway, our fellow Christians, our fellow Catholics, our fellow whatever, here he is just kind of making this appeal. Just listen to the clapping seals. I'm going to let it just run, and I'm not going to interrupt it again. But this stuff is dangerous because listen to how it sounds and then reflect on the words he actually said. They're all terrifying because everything about it is like classism. It is the opposite of, it doesn't actually, it sounds like scripture. It carries the dressings of scripture without actually being, a real Christian position.
Two issues that aren't mentioned in the Bible, two issues that Jesus never talked about. Jesus in Matthew 25 tells us exactly how you and I and every one of our fellow believers, how we're going to be judged and how we're going to be saved. By feeding the hungry, by healing the sick, by welcoming the stranger. Nothing about going to church, nothing about voting Republican. It was all about how you treat other people. Don't.
So all that's a big applause break. It's all about how you treat other people. It's all about feelings. The crazy thing is that Jesus also didn't say that you should legislate any of those things, right? He said that's how you should personally act. And that's not anything to do with the laws of a nation. Just consider that the framers of this country said that there was no legislative duty or role for the federal government to mandate and to issue charity. He's right, by the way. That is the way that you should behave, just not via government.
I've said before, don't tell me what you believe. Show me how you treat other people, and I'll tell you what you believe. And I think in our faith, we've got to get back to those fundamentals. My granddad was a Baptist preacher in South Texas. And when I was little, he told me that Christianity is a simple religion. Not an easy religion, he would always clarify, but a simple religion because Jesus gave us two commandments, love God and love neighbor. And there was no exception to that second commandment. Love thy neighbor regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation or immigration status or religious affiliation. And it's why I have fought so hard for the separation of church and state in the state capitol in Texas, because
all of that Whether you, some people may hear it and go like, well, that's not so bad. That's why it's so scary. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why these primaries that just took place in Texas they're going to be telling that that's the kind of the face of what's going to move forward. And that's where the Democrats are looking at and going, yeah, this is the guy that's going to represent us. Apparently he just threw out something like, I don't know, 1900 or 2000 straight years of theological study. He doesn't understand the fact that there is an order of love and the way that we branch out and the way that we evaluate, that you are not called to indiscriminately love all people all the same way, all at the same time, because that's outside of human capabilities. Anyway, that sort of like fake Christianity applied to, did you hear what he just said too? He said the reason why I fought so hard to keep the separation of church and state is because he doesn't like the way that you may practice it. Pretty sure there's some scripture about that too. We're not going to get into that. That's not what this show is. I'm just telling you why that guy is dangerous. And he's good at what he does. So that's something that's worth remembering. There is a story in here about that from CBS News. Talarico projected to win, again, defeating Jasmine Crockett. I think they've chosen the soft-spoken, silver-tongued liar over the brash, obnoxious, trashy chick. And that is a very specific thing. They chose a limp-wristed white male who's young over the, trash-talking, picks a fight with MTG on the floor of the House, black female, like that. That is a very specific movement, especially in Texas, which should be something people should pay attention to. He's going to face either John Cornyn or Ken Paxton. The hope is that it'll be Ken Paxton. At least we'll get John Cornyn out. But again, that's still sort of a half measure. Texas is primed to turn blue. That's what Jasmine Crockett said. We must remain united because it's bigger than one person. This is about the future of all 30 million Texans and getting America back on track. With the primary behind us, Democrats must rally around our nominees to win. That's a smart move on her part. That's her concession speech. They said they are trying to fundamentally change our politics. That's his goal. Where have we heard that? Fundamentally change things. And he said it's working. And it was not, if you look at the turnout here, and this is actually here, let me put this on the screen. Sorry, I'm scrolling past it. You guys can't see. James Talarico took about 1.2 million votes. There was a lot more turnout for Democrats than there were for Republicans. And then Jasmine got just about 1 million votes and change. And apparently there was a third party that ran, but I didn't see any of those. I didn't see any of those signs up in my area. There he is, and you'll see who's behind him, guys. I could have told you if you asked me to describe this. For those of you that are listening right now, just describe this picture in your head. He's standing in front of a sign. He's at a microphone. Who's behind this young man? Oh, a bunch of young women under the age of, looks like 30, if I had to guess. One that looks like it might be actually a black man dressed like a woman. I can't tell. But the majority of the people there in the crowd behind him, they all look a very specific way. They're exactly who you'd expect to be moving this guy along. Our chat knows too. Our chat knew before I shouted. Let's be fair. You guys know. You know who's pushing these things along. So he reminds me, yeah, you guys are correct. Sometimes I look over the chat and I go, oh yeah, you guys picked this up. He's like Smithers. He's the Texas Democrat version of Mike Johnson. Squishy, slimy, slick, really dangerous. If you actually care about it, if you listen to the things he's actually saying. So those are some of the bigger things that happened in the last 24 hours that are going to make a big change, and they are going to be a big deal for us. We should be aware of it. If you guys are listening right now on Rumble, make sure you give us a like. Appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, same thing. Make sure you subscribe to the channels wherever they're at. If you're listening on audio somewhere and it's not on Spotify, what are you doing with your life? You could have video too. There may not be as much video in the beginning of the show, but there will be on the end. So consider joining us on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com. You may hear an ad from them at this moment. I'd like to give you guys the heads up. And there's the heads up. All right, let's do some other stuff. A couple of things that I saw that were really interesting about the overseas side. And we're going to come back domestic because that's where I want to end up on anyway. This is a story from Fox News. And it comes out of a conversation I had with my dad yesterday. Maybe yesterday. What does all this stuff cost? Whenever you see, you guys have seen the memes and they show a bunch of missiles flying in the air and it says, my tax dollars at work. And then there's more missiles that are going to intercept them. And it says somehow also my tax dollars, right? It could be the same meme where you find out that we were paying for paid protesters in the United States. So you'd see the Free Palestine idiots picking a fight with the cops and you'd see like my tax dollars at work and also somehow my tax dollars at work. Like, we're funding both sides all the time of all this stuff. Well, in the case of the Iran war, which, by the way, the Biden administration was signing over pallets of cash. The Obama administration signed over pallets of cash. They're handing over billions and billions of dollars to fund this regime. What did they do with that money? Because money is fungible. So maybe they said, oh, we are using it for humanitarian purposes. We were using it only for, we only wanted to be able to do energy production for our country, blah, blah, blah. But like also it frees up money so that we can make weapons. And this is really where it gets really interesting. This story is from Fox. Okay. So for those of you that are worried about being presented biased sources, this is biased to the right, as far as I can tell. Iran's drone swarm attacks unleash exponential costs on the United States, prolonging the war. This is an asymmetric capability. Thousands of the Shahid-class drones are being used against various U.S. and Israeli sites around the Middle East because, of course, both the United States and Israel are involved in this conflict. Israelis, guys, don't say that the Israelis were the ones who backed the United States into it. That's very offensive to people for some reason. Iran is waging a massive drone campaign across the Middle East, unleashing waves of low-cost, one-way attack drones known as UAVs, or unmanned aerial vehicles, against Western-linked targets to oppose and impose this so-called exponential cost of war, a defense expert has warned us. And these are some of the drones. This is like one of these, like, you know, repeating little loops of these darn things. Very interesting because they're not expensive. And that's really the big key here. They're measured in the tens of thousands of dollars. I've heard estimates between $20,000 and $30,000 each. If you know anything about the way the United States does business, we're happy to send a $3 million+ missile interceptor, plus the personnel to operate it, you know, plus whatever it costs to reload it physically and to put it into place and to ship it. We will spend tens of millions of dollars to stop things that cost $20,000 and $30,000, just like we'll spend $10,000 on really high-end body armor and kit and plate carriers and stuff to be able to stop like something that costs 55 cents to send down the barrel. Quote, even 100 of these drones in the hands of a decentralized unit can cause terror in a neighboring state like we've never before imagined. This is Cameron Schell. He's the CEO of a drone maker called Dragonfly, Draganfly, Dragonfly. He said that their strategy is designed to force the high-end defenses to counter cheap aerial threats. So this becomes a financial battle and making us spend more to defend their cheap stuff. The Iranians can't win the war with these drones, but just like the communist Viet Cong during Vietnam, they have an asymmetric capacity and capability to prolong this war and to create political pressure. You can drive up costs. You can make it difficult for the enemy to be involved in it. And so there you have, they can drive terror in unimaginable ways and drive exponential costs on the United States side because these are hard to detect, very small drone units. And you're seeing what they look like on the screen. Again, they can be launched. They can be stockpiled underground, which is where you've seen that little clip of the video there. They've already proved deadly, having killed 6 U.S. service members in an attack on some tactical center that was in Kuwait. CIA station and the embassy that was in the Saudi capital of Riyadh was struck. There was some video of the fire coming out of that. I didn't grab the video because it just showed a bunch of stuff burning in a place that's not us. Hard to say that that's very America first, but the cost of war, I think, is fascinating. And I say that because one of the lead stories that came out of Wall Street Journal today was the discussion of Americans struggling, having a record amount of people pulling from their piggy banks going into their retirement accounts to be able to get by. And that's not a news story. That's a story that initially I read the same exact headline came from some other pages, and I'm going to show you them as well. Over a year ago, or I guess right at a year ago, this was in the summer of last year. It feels like summer here in Texas, so forgive me. Like, it's March, but it's 90 degrees outside, and so it feels like it's summer. So my calendar mentally is off because it's like if you live in Alaska and then you go outside and it's still daylight, but it's 10 o'clock at night and your circadian rhythms are all freaked out. Like, my calendar rhythm is all freaked out in Texas because I'm seriously walking around. I went to go vote in flip-flops and shorts yesterday, and I was sweaty, and it's March. It's the beginning of March, and there's like snow on the ground in like a lot of places. I was talking to a dude at Walmart, and he's like, yeah, I just got back from the Northeast, and like they were shoveling snow. And then I get here, and it's hot and our air conditioning is on. I was like, yeah, we live in a dumb place. All right. Neither here nor there. Retirement accounts. A record number of workers are rating their 401k savings accounts. A divergent economy has given people record retirement savings, but more people are having to dig into them. This is a really interesting discussion when we are talking about the cost of war, because all that money comes from who? You. It comes from us. It comes out of our taxes. So that's the burden. We've got the Iranians trying to basically do a war of attrition where they are spending as little as possible. And they're sending these weapon systems downrange. And then our cost is 100 times more, something like that, maybe worse. More Americans are digging into their retirement savings because of financial emergencies. Last year, a record 6% of 401k plans administered by the Vanguard Group took a hardship withdrawal. That's up from 4.8 in 2024. And there was a pre-pandemic average of about 2%. So from the time that the pandemic took place, or the time prior, so prior to 2020, you had a 2% hardship withdrawal rate out of Vanguard, which is a very large financial group. That doubled over the 4 years after the pandemic. And it's gone up another 50, almost 50%, 40 something percent in 2025. If people are dipping into their 401ks, there's a couple of reasons you might do it. There's reasons you might borrow against if you're a government employee, what's called the thrift savings account. You can borrow against your own accounts, give yourself essentially your own loan. Are you doing it because you have some huge financial opportunity? You could buy some underwater business and you could launch your own. Or is it that you're just trying to make ends meet? The data paint a divergent financial picture of American workers' finances. While most are faring well, some are experiencing heightened financial stress. This is the so-called K-shaped economy. And that's going to continue being a problem. And you're going to lose these voters. If you were out there campaigning on, what were they campaigning on again? Affordability. Hold on. Let me see if I've got this here. Let me pull up Agenda 47 and see where affordability was. Oh, it was number 3. I bet I still have it. Look at this. I still have it sitting here in my deck. Number 3, end inflation, make America affordable again. That's a great plan. Make America affordable again. If you go out there and campaign on the economy, and then you turn around and find ourselves in a economy boosting war machine where we're funding it, coming and going, that may not be the way that you're able to pull this thing off. I read something that Tom Massey posted the other day that said we've spent something like $8 trillion in the Middle East in the last 10 years. And I don't remember if exactly it was 10 years, but I'm going from memory, so don't hold me strictly accountable to the time limit. $8 trillion, which he said was about 100 times the amount of budget we spend on our roads in this country. And imagine what you could do with the potholes and the infrastructure capabilities, and even just putting people to work on these inefficient government programs, just spending it here so the money stayed here and didn't go up in the sky and explode. It's just, I can't help but see the two things there. Workers have been saving more in their 401ks. The balances have soared to all-time highs. All of this has to do with inflation as well, by the way. So if your dollar is worth less, then you can put more dollars in because it's not worth anything. You're actually getting a smaller return as you continue to put more money in because the money is worth less. In any case, here is this article here. Workers have been saving more. The balances have soared with many people saving in their 401k. They become increasingly more important lifeline when financial troubles hit. There are people in the suspendables group that have actually tapped into 401ks and similar retirement accounts to be able to survive. That's not a great situation. The uptick in hardship withdrawals marks the 6th straight year of increases since 2018, when Congress made it easier to take a hardship distribution by eliminating the requirement to take out a 401k loan first. The loan actually is probably better in many ways if you know you can pay it back. But if you think you're not going to be able to pay it back, if it's not like a financial opportunity for you to buy a property or an underwater business, then yeah, you're taking it out because you are trying to survive. Top reasons for taking them out include foreclosure and eviction. Both of those are financial catastrophes. Paying medical expenses. I thought we were supposed to have like all these safety nets, and it turns out that medical is really expensive. Most people, if they took the money that they spend on insurance, if you're not regularly going to a doctor where your insurance actually is benefiting you. I talked to one of my neighbors the other day, and I think he said he spends like $25,000 a year on insurance and does nothing with it. Literally nothing. Doesn't take his kids to doctors, chooses to not go to doctors, still has that payroll deduction every single month, every single paycheck. A lot of you are probably in that boat. It turns out the insurance companies are some of the biggest companies and the most profitable. Because why? Because they make money on this stuff. They're counting on the idea that you're not going to actually use the healthcare. And so you're doing a daily scam for something that you hope is going to cover you in a catastrophe. And then you find out when there is a catastrophe that it actually is still catastrophic to you. Go figure. More Americans are falling behind on debt payments, including mortgages, putting them at risk of foreclosure. The average income of clients seeking help from credit counseling agencies is rising. That's a really damning stat as well. Again, this is all coming out of the Wall Street Journal. When was this written? I think it was written today, March 4th, 8 a.m. Eastern time. So there you have it. Another factor in the rise is the automatic enrollment. It's moved for where more workers are actually automatically putting money into their 401ks. So it's giving them more savings to draw upon. People are building in their own safety net, thinking that they may have to use it. That is the worst case scenario for a lot of people if you're going into that. Oh, man, here you go. Other data. Vanguard paints a positive picture of financial health from participants. It's buttressed by strong domestic and international stock markets. The average account balance rose 13% in 2025 to a record high of $168,000. Now, that's going to be people from all different ages. But I did a quick little look through some 401k records and kind of where the stats are. They used to say that if you retired with $1 million in your 401k or your retirement plans, then you essentially could look forward to a healthy retirement for a very long period of time, maybe indefinitely. About 3.2% of Americans are able to do that at this point. So it's still very, very uncommon. Let's go to this story from MSN. This is from a week ago. Same story. It says the surprising reason that most Americans that are cashing out 401ks early, again, it's the same deal. Many people in their 20s and 30s, they think that this has quietly become an emergency fund, that they're able to, they barely manage to build it, and then they're already drawing on it. It says 1 in 3 Americans cashes out some or all of their 401k balance after changing jobs, taking taxable distributions instead of rolling over. Young people are taking it as a accidental savings account. They're looking at it and saying, well, I've got, whatever it is, $15,000 that I've stayed in here for the last couple of years. I need that money now, so I'm going to take it. And they roll over and they take a massive tax hit on it. It gets taxed as badly as possible because it was originally something that was a tax deferred or it was tax exempt. All that's really terrible. It's telling you that people make terrible choices. You know what the bigger story for me on that is? And you guys in the chat can weigh in on this too, but when I see people that are making questionable financial decisions and they have to get themselves, sometimes we get stuck in a situation where that's like that. But if you backed yourself into that corner and you're old enough to know better, it also tells me something about who's voting. One of the messages I got privately was, you see the way that people live their lives, and especially when you see the way that people say things on social media that are completely wrong, they have minimal facts, and then you wonder oh, why are we in this screwed up situation? Maybe it's because we have a lot of dumb people making choices for us. And that maybe I got a text message yesterday that said landed white voters was a feature, not a bug in the original Constitution. I wouldn't even be in that category today, and I tend to agree with that sort of thing. And I don't think the skin color is relevant so much as people who have skin in the game make better choices because, they have skin in the game. People who don't oftentimes don't make great decisions, and we can see it. And this little story here of we're spending money in the Middle East, they're raiding their retirement savings. Where does that leave you? That's very short-term thinking. It's super dangerous. Again, all of it being compared against what Donald Trump ran on, the stuff he said. All right, should we do some Epstein stuff real quick? I found this to be pretty telling, pretty interesting. I don't know how many of you heard this, but for those of you that are not Thomas Massie fans, and some of you are, some of you aren't, Tom Massie had something to say about what he asked what he asked of the Epstein files, what he expected out of it. Some of you think it's performative. This was him reading names on the floor. There was this big push. It's well, if you know people, why aren't you saying them? And the answer is okay, I guess he will. He went in and started reading this. What we learn more than anything else from the Epstein files, what we've actually learned watching this sort of failure to live up to the promises, is that we have a government that's basically unaccountable. And the entire executive, it just does whatever the hell it wants. This is what Congress set up. This is why having a John Carter represent me is atrocious, because he's been there for 24 years. If you've been there 24 years, you're not part of the problem. You are the problem. if we've got people that are not actually going to be dissidents and say, we got to change something radical because over the last 30 years, Americans have had a worse and worse experience. More and more people are borrowing from their future safety net. And we're what, sending millions of dollars into the sky to explode to defend what, American? The only reason we're defending Americans is because we put them there. Nobody made us go there. We don't have to be there. It's Tom Massey reading some Epstein victims and potential abusers. And sadly enough, it sounds like Hillary Clinton is on the same page. This is one of those funny moments where you guys get really mad and you're like, well, if you're siding with Democrats, you're the problem. It's like, if you're calling out the problem, you're at least recognizing that there's a problem, which is the opposite.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Congress created the Department of Justice. Congress funds the Department of Justice, and Congress is responsible for the oversight of the Department of Justice. When will we see justice? I'll tell you what I've not seen. I've not seen any arrests from the revelations in the Epstein files, over 3 million documents describing horrible things, describing unspeakable things, so much of it redacted. Over 24 people have resigned, CEOs, members of government worldwide, but I haven't seen any arrests or investigations here in the United States from this Department of Justice.
Let me just call out that this happened before the strike in Iran. And the one thing that I think is really problematic about this is that there at least is an instinct that what we're doing in Iran is an attempt to distract from the whole Epstein administration moniker. And I'm not seeing a lot of evidence that that's not the case, especially when we're involved with Israel and there were a lot of allegations about Israel. Like, again, the public perception, it may not be the reality of it, but it is a lot of people who are going to look at it and go, what the hell did you do when you had a choice? You decided to not expose this. And the chat is saying it. Operation Epstein Fury is not the first time I've seen that. It's something that trends across social media. If you're trying to distract us from this, and as Massey pointed out, what's the U.S. doing? We're seeing other countries arrest people. We're seeing other countries acknowledge their sins and go out there. And yeah, I think that they're actually countries that knew that these things were going on beforehand? Yes. But they've been exposed now, and at least they're doing the show of pretending to care about it. And the U.S. is just going, we don't really give a shit about what you think. We don't care. We're not going to do anything about it. We're going to fire people. We're going to go fire off missiles. We're going to just keep acting like business as usual. Why? Because an 84-year-old just won his primary against a field of like decent contenders. Because the status quo will continue.
Prince Andrew, Duke of York, who has since been stripped of his royal titles due to his affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein, has been arrested. Peter Mandelson, who previously served as UK's ambassador to the United States, resigned in disgrace from United Kingdom's House of Lords and the Labour Party, and he's been arrested. Former Prime Minister of Norway, Torbjorn Jagland, has been charged. But we don't see any charges, arrests, or investigations in the United States. What do we see? We see our FBI director celebrating in the locker room at the Olympics overseas. It's fine to be proud of this country, but we should be proud of this country because we have a system of justice that works, and yet we do not.
Fact check that one for me, folks. Do we have a system of justice that works? It feels like we don't. It feels like we don't, and I'm going to show you that the Clintons were both deposed in a second. Neither one of them seems particularly concerned. I'm going to just give you a tiny snippet of it. We're not going to watch all of it, nor would you want to. The two things I took away is that Hillary is held together by hate and rage. Bill Clinton is held together by, I don't know, spit and cellophane. He's just barely holding it together. His body looks like it's falling apart. And yet, zero fear of accountability. Here's more Massey.
Who are the men that should be investigated? I'll name them right here. Leon Black. You don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused of terrible things. It's right there in the files. Why is he not being investigated? And Leslie Wexner. Why did the FBI list him as a co-conspirator in their own documents in a child sex trafficking case, and then tell him, according to him, that they had no questions for him. Why is that? Well, the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires the DOJ and the FBI to disclose to us their internal memos and emails about how they made those decisions, whether to prosecute or not prosecute. Yet they have not delivered those memos. And we still...
Yeah, those memos are usually emails, declinations from the United States Attorney's Office. Where are they? CBS News ran this story this morning, which I think is very interesting. DOJ has been taking down Epstein files. Here's what remains. A massive tranche. I don't know why I just mispronounced that word. A massive tranche of files at Justice Department currently remains. There's more than 65,000 pages shorter than what the agency originally released. They pulled 65,000 back. There's roughly 2.7 million pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. That's what their analysts found. The number is below the initial claim of 3 million. The total continues to fluctuate because they are releasing and unreleasing and pulling in and pulling out and deciding whether or not you can see it, and then accidentally giving the names they shouldn't be giving and then realizing they did that. Like, what sort of high level incompetence was involved in that? Let's talk about two things about that high level incompetence, and I'll read more from the story in a second. Number one, the person who ran the Epstein redaction program, ran the information management division of the FBI, and her name is Shannon Perry. Shannon Perry is a leftist. Shannon Perry hunted whistleblowers. Shannon Perry was promoted under Comey and then under Wray, and then again by Kash Patel, completely illogically. And she emailed back and forth with Dan Bongino, who was the deputy director, because they started this Transparency Act long before the law was passed. They started it in like March of 2025. They were doing redactions. There was a promise that was made. Again, another promise that was part of the, whether it was the Trump campaign or Trump surrogates. Pam Bondi said, there's a list on my desk and I'm going to share it with you. And they act like we don't remember they did this. So all this stuff, it all comes back to, hey, what did you say you were going to do? And then do you have people in place that are going to do it? Are they going to screw you over? And what's amazing is after a full year of having a redaction program, the hard leftist that runs the redaction program is making this particular administration look like absolute buffoons and fools. Why? Why is that happening? Why is she allowed to stay? At what point when you fail dramatically in government do they go like, hey, by the way, you suck at what you're doing and you can no longer do that? Well, the answer is basically never. You know you're screwed when Hillary Clinton is able to dunk on you, and she is right. Yeah, like, Republicans, get your act together. You need to get rid of the FBI director. He's terrible. And all the people he put in are terrible. You know what I found out yesterday, which I didn't know before? One of the programs that I've advised, to Kash Patel was that you should stop making people who want to be what's called program managers in the FBI move to FBI headquarters in order to do that work. Usually they just move for like what's called an 18-month temporary duty. So we would pay for their lodging, for their food. We would pay them all this extra money for them to come and spend 18 full months, which is that's a full term of duty somewhere. We would have them move there. By the way, you could move somewhere and the FBI will pay for you to move. Actually, the entire government will do this. They'll move you somewhere to a new duty post. As long as you stay there a year, you don't owe them any money. So they could pay to move and then move back and it would still be cheaper than all this stuff. But anyway, I said, stop making people move to DC because you are self-selecting the type of people that would come in. And I found out yesterday from one of my buddies out in the field that they actually enacted my program. And you're going to be shocked to hear this, but the best people that we have working in the headquarters units for the Bureau, they come from this program that I conceived of. And I don't know if it was like originally my idea or something that I came up with my other buddies. And I don't remember who gets credit, but I know that I briefed it to Kash. Stop making people move to headquarters to do headquarters work. Let them work from the field. Just give them a headquarters title and then let them operate. Let them stay there with their families if their spouse has a job or their kids are in school. And apparently they're doing that. And guess what it resulted in? You're going to be shocked. By not making the worst people fill the jobs, you get the best people filling the jobs for it. So kudos to that. You get credit for doing my idea, although they didn't give me any credit for it. That was Kyle Seraphin's. I guarantee you, Kash Patel did not come up with that on his own. That was a suspendables program. How about this one? Get rid of Kash Patel. He sucks. Get rid of the people that he promoted that suck and have sucked for a long time and are really dangerous. Again, if Hillary Clinton is doing a good dunk on you and she's correct, you should be gone. This should be enough evidence for Donald Trump to get rid of it because she's right. She's doing this in front of the GOP subcommittee here. This is the GOP Oversight Committee.
To try to get to the bottom. If they are incompetent and they are incapable of complying with the law that the Congress passed, we need to know that because they are falling down on the job. They have an FBI director who's more interested in drinking beer in a hockey dressing room after our team won the Olympics, rather than being responsive and complying with the law as it has been promulgated.
Objection. It was a locker room, not a dressing room, Madam Secretary. Right? Like, she's correct, though. Yeah, if you can't get it done, you get to go party if you're kicking ass. That's the thing. Like, nobody would be mad about Kash Patel, like, running around on the jet and doing a bunch of shady things if he was winning. How many prosecutions that were promised have taken place? Is Jim Comey in jail? No. Is he going to be? No. Letitia James? Tied up in a bunch of mess. John Bolton doing CNN hits after having his house raided, right? Do you think that any of these people fear the Patel Justice Department, the Bondi Justice Department? Do they fear what Donald Trump was bringing? You know, the gathering storm, the Patriots are in charge now. Anyone fear these guys? No. Here's Bill Clinton, not fearing anyone, looking 1,000 years old and hearing about how he likes young women, which, by the way, pretty good gotcha on this one with the young women piece. But again, a man who is utterly not concerned. What is he going to die in prison as a president, a former president? Nah, he got away with it. Just like Julie Kelly said, actually, interestingly enough, nobody's going to be prosecuted. Everyone got away with it. She said that on Bannon in July of last year.
Witnesses who testified in the Epstein cases that Epstein said, you quote, like them young. Why would Epstein say that about you?
Are you asking his opinion? You're asking him to think about why Mr. Epstein would say something about him?
Why would Epstein say that about
she's asking you to try to be in Mr. Epstein's mind and guess at what Mr. Epstein would have thought about.
Clinton likes them young, referring to girls.
I'm going to give you a second here as he pauses because it's worth knowing. One, he conflates young with underage in this particular segment. Two, he acts like he doesn't understand the question, so the attorney has to explain it to him, and then they ask other, like, more poignant questions, and he's really fast to answer those. So he's playing dumb here because Bill Clinton's not dumb.
First of all, that's not true.
What's not true?
That I have any interest in underage.
I didn't say underage. I said young.
Oops.
But it's still not true.
Is an intern young?
Oops.
Yes.
Okay.
At my age, anybody younger than I am.
Did you know Jeffrey Epstein instructed a witness to deny you were ever on his island?
He didn't have to since I was never there.
Did you ever travel to Zorro Ranch?
Is that the one in New Mexico?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Have you ever flown on anyone else's private jet 26 times or more for overseas trips?
I have flown as many miles on other jets, but never with as many stops.
How many other people's planes have you used, like Epstein 26 times or miles, etc.?
I don't know. I did with Steve Bing, who's now deceased.
Convenient.
And probably with 4 or 5 others.
Okay. So maybe about a half dozen billionaires total. So
notice the attorney doesn't have to explain what the question means, except in the one where he needed time to figure out what to answer, and it took him a long time anyway.
How many dinners did you have with Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein in attendance?
She's asking to the best of your recollection.
I have no idea.
Okay. Did you ever discuss sexual misconduct allegations made against you with Epstein or Maxwell?
Never.
Did Epstein or Maxwell ever offer to help manage or silence women who made sexual misconduct allegations against you?
No.
Did Epstein or Maxwell ever offer financial support directly or indirectly to legal defense funds related to impeachment proceedings or civil actions against you?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you think a young girl massaging a president is unusual?
So are you asking his opinion?
Well, he was massaged by a young woman. I'm asking if he thinks it's unusual that a president, sitting president of the United States, leader of the free world, that it's unusual.
Are you speaking to? Are you talking to the instance of the
yes? Is it unusual that
the back massage that occurred while he was not president? I'm just trying to understand. You said a president of the United States.
Former president.
Thank you. Just trying to make sure we're correcting the time
Are you
frame.
filibustering?
No, I don't need to. I'm actually trying to make sure that as
pretty
you...
clear. He said he knows what
said he was a sitting president.
Excuse me, could we just please go one at a time?
Yeah, the problem is that the attorney is correct. They're setting up these like wannabe gotcha questions and they're doing them ineffectively. This is the best that they've got for Bill Clinton. It's nothing, right? And so he's going to walk away from this stuff. He doesn't care. He's just sitting there like his hands shaking as he drinks, not because he's nervous, because he's 1,000 years old now. You know, Bill Clinton, not a care in the world. Doesn't mind. And in theory, if we didn't have shots fired in Iran right now, then this would be front page news. The Clintons being deposed. Wouldn't you guys think that that would be a big deal? Nah. Would it be a big deal that we've had foreign heads of state and other people have like lost their positions and been arrested? It would be. But we move on. So a lot of this stuff looks like cover to me. Just saying. And again, well, this ineffective mission of being able to put up files and then pull them back down, it's indicative of unserious people in incredibly serious jobs. And it shouldn't be an incredibly serious job, it turns out. You just have to be mildly competent, and we can't even get mild competency. So that's going to take me to my kind of final thing here, which I think is maybe one of the worst stories. This situation with Christi Noem, which I've just kind of been monitoring. I'm not personally invested in the HSI and in the DHS sort of undertakings, but it is one of the bigger promises, and I will show you. It's one of the bigger promises that was made by Donald Trump. What was number one? Seal the border, stop the migrant invasion. That's a DHS protocol. Number two, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. That's it. Those are the number one, the number two, and the last one was make it affordable. So start a war, not affordable. Stop the migrant invasion, A+, probably, as far as we could tell. Carry out the largest deportation operation, not happening. So what are we seeing instead? We're hearing about hundreds of millions of dollars of DHS funding, promoting the image of Border Barbie, of doing commercials with her. And it's so bad that members of both the Republican and the Democrat Party looked at this woman and go, you are a freaking grifter among grifters. This is someone who's been described to me as a rhino. This is Tillis out of North Carolina asking questions. He seems pissed. The problem is when Republicans and Democrats, some of them are reasonable and some of them are people that you generally are going to hear favorable stuff that you like. Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana got in on this. I've been watching Senator Welch from Vermont have some pretty decent lines of questions in a number of these hearings. He actually seems like he's got a really good staff too. So let's just do some highlights. What happens when you're a highly made up social media character spending tons of American money on promoting your own image? Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean they're wrong. And in this case, I think Tillis is correct when he's calling out Christi Noem.
Those people, and I want to detain fewer of the others. And Mr. Chair, in my remaining time, I have a lot to go. But I want to submit this letter from the Office of Inspector General that cites 10 different instances under Ms. Noem's leadership where they've been misled and not allowed to pursue investigations that they think are critically important. Does anybody have any idea how bad it has to be for the OIG in this agency to come out and do this publicly? That is stonewalling. That's a failure of leadership. And that is why I've called for your resignation. And if I don't get an answer to these questions, I don't want an applause. Please don't do that for me. If I don't get an answer to these questions, if I don't get an answer that you've had a month to respond to, and the remaining ones, as of today, I'll be informing leadership that I'm putting a hold on any en-bloc nominations until I get a response. And in 2 weeks, if I don't get a response, I'm going to deny quorum and markup in as many committees as I can until I get a response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Now it's Senator Booker's turn.
My favorite is hearing the ancient voice of Chuck Grassley. Now it's time for, as he steps up and like they pump him full of whatever it is to make him wake up from sitting there falling asleep in his hands. Guys, if you're watching on Rumble, thumbs up, give us a like. Same thing on YouTube. If you're watching, subscribe where you're at. If you're listening somewhere other than Spotify, you're missing the video, and you should check us out on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com. Play a Spotify ad here if they would like, and that way you guys have the heads up and the warning. Let's continue. I'm going to read this piece real quick here, and then I've got a couple other pieces of video evidence from that hearing. Again, pretty damning. Christi Noem doesn't retract calling U.S. citizens killed by immigration agents domestic terrorists in a tense hearing. That seems problematic. Her own words being used against her. She said some really reckless and stupidly irresponsible things at that time. I think the killing of Renee Good and Alex Pretty were very, very different, but they're getting lumped in together. This is the first time she's appeared in front of Congress since those immigration agents fatally shot both of those two in January. That's how far and how fast we've gone. We're only, 40 days away from those things happening? We've moved on from Somali fraud. We've moved on from the major priorities that people thought were going to happen. We've moved on from the surge in Minneapolis to take back that city and try to have it fall under federal rule. We had some mediocre negotiations. How much follow-up are you going to see in the major news? How much follow-up are you going to see from DHS letting you know how successful they are at deporting people there? Probably not. I don't have the ability to check up on all those things, but I'd like to know, is someone going to keep the tabs on this, or are we just going to move on? Because what they're counting on is this goldfish memory that Americans have. Homeland Security Secretary Christi Noem did not apologize nor retract administration statements falsely calling two U.S. citizens domestic terrorists shortly after they were killed by immigration agents in Minnesota. By the way, they were falsely called that. Using that term recklessly and loosely is exactly why people who are J6ers, people who understand what happened on J6, should be terrified about using this kind of rhetoric and language. It's stupid, it's irresponsible, it's very short-sighted. In her first appearance before Congress since the fatal shooting of Renee Good, January the 7th, so now coming up on 2 months, and Alex Pretty on January the 24th, that one's less than a month and a half away in the past, Noem repeatedly defended the Trump administration immigration policies and tactics during a tense, almost 4-hour Senate Judiciary hearing. Dick Durbin, the ranking member, pressed about why Good and Pretty were falsely labeled domestic terrorists. That's one thing. You expect that from Dick Durbin. He's a Democrat out of Illinois. He's not going to run for re-election. What about when your quote-unquote own side is doing it? What do you do then? And here's Senator Kennedy, who I think a lot of you probably think well of. He tends to be a really good kind of gotcha player against the other side. And he had comments about the same.
After the two killings in Minneapolis, and I think there's a lot of video on them, Madam Secretary. I think people can see the video and draw their own conclusions. Are you and your department conducting an investigation of those?
Sir, the investigation is being led by the FBI. HSI was involved. In fact, our HSI agents on the ground.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got so little time. I believe at the time you said these were acts of domestic terrorism. Is that right?
Sir, in answer to questions at the press conference that afternoon, it was that it appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously in this hearing, is that
first, Madam Secretary, did you say
we're getting
that?
information from a chaotic scene on the ground and relaying information to the American people.
Okay. Now, again, those videos are public. People can draw their own conclusions. I think it'd be safe to say you got some pushback on that. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
And you got some criticism. I'm not saying the criticism was accurate or inaccurate. I think you did. Mm-hmm. What got my attention was that you blamed those statements on Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House. Did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a news article with no sources affiliated to it.
You said it on the record on January 27th of 2026. Did I read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go forward.
Do you think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with
Yes, ma'am.
anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no
This
one has
wasn't
heard me
anonymous.
say that.
It was you.
No. Who
I mean, you
reported
said
that
it.
to that newspaper?
They're quoting you on the record, saying it's Stephen's fault.
I didn't say what I said because that would be devastating to what I said. And I would never want to they're going through this sort of like Donald Trump tactic of never apologize, never say you did the wrong thing, never admit wrongdoing. It works for Donald Trump because everyone kind of assumes that Donald Trump says things that are false. The problem is, you guys are saying this in the chat as well. What's the difference between this and the last administration? They lied. They're like, is anybody from the previous administration being held accountable? I do think that the last one did really bad things. This one's doing stupid things, and they're costing a ton of money. Should we talk about that money? Are you guys good with the idea that Christi Noem is essentially spending almost $200 million, maybe more, by the time it's all paid out, for what seems to be promotion of her own image on some misguided thought that Americans would want her as president of the United States? Because that's what's going on here. That's what I've been told behind the scenes. Christi Noem thinks that she's going to have a presidential run. The candidate, the cabinet position gave her the opportunity to do that. So she's taking hundreds of millions of dollars of DHS funding, and that's why she shows up in all these ads promoting what? Like, do we need Christi Noem telling you something, and then she's going to tell us it's super successful? What's the cost? What's the cost of the ads, and what's the way to track the return on advertising? You guys are cheering for it. You got to answer these questions. Let's talk about the kind of numbers we're looking at here. This was a ProPublica story, which should be a major scandal in any normal administration. I mean, it should just be a major scandal for Americans who just don't want to spend a bunch of money on this lady. And again, you watch. Mark it today. What's today? March 4th, 2026. I expect that we will hear about Christi Noem putting her announcement in to be to run in 2028, or for the 2028 nominee for the Republican Party. So we'll see that for sure. And here's how you know.
It's on a U.S. government website that says that contract for $143 million was a no-bid contract. Public documentation says the contract of $143 million went to the Safe America company, created 11 days before they got an award. That company then subcontracted with the strategy group, and you are familiar with many of the principals in the strategy group, correct?
I know one of them.
Mr. Yoho.
Yes.
And let me show you a photograph. That's Mr. Yoho standing next to you, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Yoho is also the husband of your former spokesperson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tricia McLaughlin.
Yes.
So your former assistant secretary and her husband are the ones that got the subcontract from Safe America, or from Safe America. That's what the record shows. Any dispute about that?
No, except there was no politicals, myself or anyone else besides career employees who were a part of that process,
except
for putting out those contracts and choosing
generous.
those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not insinuating. I'm stating a fact. The fact is,
you're saying that I weighed in on this contracting process, and I did not.
Mr. Chairman, the fact is that Mr. Yoho was married to your assistant secretary. Is married, correct?
Yes, they are still married.
All right. And Mr. Yoho also ran an ad campaign for you in your gubernatorial campaign, correct?
Yes.
And he also attended your inauguration.
Yes.
And Mr. Yoho received $8.5 million, or his company did, from the taxpayers of South Dakota when you ran an ad promotion showing you doing various jobs like a plumber and a dentist, correct?
Again, that was done according to the law and processes at the state of South Dakota.
I understand, but
Yeah,
this is a person that worked on your campaign. This is a person that worked on your media plan in South Dakota when you were governor. And this is a person who also worked on your memoir. Is that correct?
On my memoir?
And he worked with Mr. Lewandowski. Is that correct?
I don't know, sir. I don't know about the business
Mr.
arrangements they've had in the
Lewandowski
past.
is your special advisor.
Special government employee.
Right.
For the White
and
House.
Mr. Lewandowski brought Mr. Yoho into your camp. They had worked on the Louisiana governor's campaign, correct?
No, I knew Ben Yoho before that.
All right. So the person that you knew, Mr. Yoho, the husband of your assistant secretary, is the person in the company that got the subcontract 11 days after this original company, Safe America, was founded. That's the record.
He's not very artful about saying this, is he? I mean, he's not getting the message real cleanly, and she's trying to object to it. It's really simple. There was a woman that worked for Christi Noem, and her name was Tricia McLaughlin. She was the spokesperson for DHS. And her husband was part of a media campaign while Christi Noem was governor, showed up at her inauguration, had ongoing contracts with the state in North Dakota while she was governor. So he benefited from all these things. And then magically, he also got a huge contract from DHS. And it had nothing to do with politics or the fact that they're friendly. And they're talking about a company that was created 11 days prior to winning like a $143 million contract. But that's not what corruption is. And then they brought up Corey Lewandowski, who's not an official anything, but he's a quote unquote special governmental employee. So they're revealing a lot of the stuff that should just infuriate everybody if you freaking think these people are scumbags. And it doesn't matter if they have an R or a D after the name. They all do this stuff. It just turns out the Republicans are in power right now. And I'd call it out if the Democrats were doing it. If you're exposing that your friend's husband and your actual friend, who is that husband, who helped you previously for like the last 10 years in political stuff, and then you do a kickback by giving them contracts that they shouldn't otherwise have, and then you hire your buddies or your lovers or whoever these people are to come in and be special governmental employees, which, by the way, don't have the same sort of limitations on payment. We don't know for a fact what Erica Knight, Kash Patel's longtime PR person, gets paid. But there's been claims, credible claims from people around me, that she's making as much as $500,000 on the taxpayer dime. That she gets paid $500,000 as a PR consultant that basically is an image consultant for the FBI director. And we're all paying for that. Now, she was working for the Bureau, she'd make like $200,000 or she'd make $180,000. She couldn't make more than that unless she was a senior SES. But because she's on a contract that's getting paid out through some third-party company that hires her company through a contract and they get paid, she's a special governmental employee, which shouldn't even exist. We shouldn't have these things. All these contracts and cutouts like this is the reason why that permanent nastiness continues on. To be able to look over and tell a senator that the reason that we had to spend $200 million on an advertising campaign for me to go out there and look nice and dress up in roles like a plumber and doing like real work because I'm putting North Dakota back to work. And by the way, my friend's husband gets $8 million out of the deal. And then you do the same thing when you get into a national office, which you weren't elected to. She was appointed by Donald Trump. Like, all of these things are people who look and say, there's a time when I can steal everything possible when no one is looking and there's no accountability for it. And it happens on both sides of the aisle. And so that's what we're seeing. And, kudos to Republicans for actually calling this stuff out. If Adam Schiff and John Kennedy all agree on this thing. And by the way, what's going to happen? Does anyone think that Christi Noem is going to face like an indictment for this? Does anyone think that that Alejandro Mayorkas is going to face an indictment under this administration? No. None of the people that go and rob us blind as taxpayers, none of them face any justice on there because what they're doing is not illegal. It's just the way the system works, which is why the system is so disgusting. For those of you who think you can vote your way out of this, the people that represent you when you vote, allegedly, they all want to get in there for one reason. They want to get in there and do this stuff. The biggest money is not even in the person who's elected. It's in the people that are, the best gig is to be appointed by somebody and get some sweet gig doing some useless job where you justify your existence and then somebody else has to answer for why you got a huge contract for something. Those people aren't American, they're not American elected representatives. They don't work for DHS. They're some subcontractor. The contract went to one person who takes a cut. It goes to a subcontractor to fill it. And what do they all have in common? They all just basically stuck around, hung out at Mar-a-Lago, made sure they were in Donald Trump's orbit, did enough knob slobbery to know that they were loyal, but not competent. And so we keep electing people assuming that Donald Trump's promises are going to be what they're going to be because he said them. And it's like, well, who did he get to fulfill them? Scumbags. Here's Kennedy again, talking about the same exact problem with this money. And he's very calm about it.
How do you square that concern for waste, which I share, with the fact that you have spent $220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently?
Sir, the president tasked me with getting the message out to the country and to other countries where we were seeing the invasion come from, with putting commercials out that told them that if they were in this country illegally, that they needed to leave, or we would detain them and remove them, and they'd not get the chance to come back to America the right way. That has been extremely effective.
Ask you to run these advertisements, is that right?
We had that conversation, yes, before I was put in this position and sworn in and confirmed, and since then as well.
Okay. Did you bid out those service contracts?
Yes, they did. They went out to a competitive bid, and career officials at the department chose who would do those advertising commercials.
And the people that you ended up picking were people who had formerly done your political work back in South Dakota. Is that right?
No, that's not correct, sir.
I think it is.
No, it's not, sir. The individuals who, I believe the careers who they chose were two different media firms. There's been conversation about their subcontractors, but we have no legal authority to look into subcontractors on work like that.
Got it. So it's all legal. Okay, here's what happened. We put it out to competitive bid. The employees that are deniable, who are career employees of DHS, they made the choice of the contractors. We had no say in that. And then they turned around and just happened to pick the subcontractors who were, the company was married, the company's owner was married to the spokesperson for DHS. It's just an accident. Like, we have no ability to do that. Again, it's all strictly speaking legal. This is legalized theft. This is what it looks like. This is how you do it. She said we pushed it off onto career people. So why did those career people do that? Did they think that they would lose their job if they didn't? All this stuff is it's just so disingenuous. And you think, and just to be fair, if Donald Trump made the claim that he was going to put Christi Noem into DHS so that she could run a bunch of advertisements of herself on our dollar to help deport people, why would looking at that woman make you want to leave this country? I mean, other than the fact that it's sort of ridiculous and she's made out of plastic. Like, no. Nobody said we needed to have an image campaign for the DHS secretary. Show a bunch of hard dudes that like beat the shit out of illegals that break into our country and try to fight Border Patrol. How about that? How about guys that are like calf roping? How about dudes that are like running, jumping out of helicopters and tackling people in the desert? Show that. You don't need to show this woman sitting on a freaking horse.
Okay. And you're saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correct.
Will she just answer the damn question? You guys see why these are all show and theory and why none of this is real? Again, the simple question is this. Did Donald Trump say, yes, let's spend $220 million of the American taxpayers so that we can promote your face, your fake face all over America as the face of deportations and boost your image? That's what I want to spend our money on as a president of the United States. Is that what he says? And of course, she'll just say, we went through the legal process. We did all this. We had this.
The president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Donald Trump.
One thing, Senator, I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been.
Listen, Senator, let me just tell you, like, not only did I do this thing, but also the results are undeniable. They're kind of deniable, though. Have we had the mass deportation thing? Like, literally, there's a story in here right now me see if it's this story. Which one of these? There's a story that I'm looking at. Oh, it's in the same story I was just reading you guys a second ago, talking about the her using the terrorism claims. She's defended her agency's policy. Where are we going here? Stay still. As she faced a number of questions about the agency's administration enforcement priorities, including the arrest of immigrants with no criminal records and no criminal convictions, which have increased after Donald Trump took office. Like, who cares? The answer should be, we're going to deport everybody. Who cares if they have, they've been this mixed message. We're going after the worst of the worst. No, if you're here legally, everyone's going to be deported. We're going to grab a net so wide that if you're part of it, you better leave or you're going to get grabbed up by our guys. Or you can, and you can tell how serious we are because this is the face of our movement. Here she is. That's the face of the movement. Seriously? Woman with hair extensions and a plastic face made up with like 3 pounds of makeup. That's what's going to put fear in the hearts of illegal aliens? No. What we did is we funded her kickoff campaign so she can talk about how much name recognition she has and she can gather a bunch of money for the next grift. And the grift will be, just like Valentina Gomez, do you know my name? You can show up on the ballot if people just know your name. $220 million from our pockets to do an image campaign for a woman who couldn't arrest anybody and doesn't even know how to hold a rifle and is more likely to shoot somebody in the freaking head. I love it when I start seeing people say sweet meteor of death in the chat. Guys, 100%. Like, I don't want the sweet meteor of death, but like, we're not voting out of this. You can't vote the same scumbags in and expect they're going to do it. The party serves the party. That's why John Carter's going to be my representative. An 84-year-old dude, 85-year-old dude is going to go back to Congress to represent me. Why? Because that's what the party wants. Because they've already got him under control. He already does what they need him to do. So gross. So nasty. All right. If you liked the video, great. If you didn't like the video, fine. Hit the thumbs down. I don't care. Thanks for being with us on Rumble and on YouTube. Guys, you can join us on locals at KyleSeraphin.com. The Tackleberry Project is starting to take shape. Some of you guys got to see it behind the scenes yesterday. It's a bunch of work. That's what I get for biting off the idea of building my own set again in another place. I just carried the damn thing upstairs, which was not light. It looks like there's a freaking armory from like Boondock Saints in the vestibule of this studio right now. If you guys like what you're seeing, make sure you are subscribed to the channels wherever you can, and you can share the Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com. You may hear a Spotify ad too. Let me wrap up with the Iran stuff because we're about at the end here, but there is still stuff, there are other stuff's going on, and this is the kind of the update. So the update is that the United States is now taking down, torpedoing Iranian ships. We're after the Navy. If you don't think this is all like staged in theater, I'm going to give you my example. Here's the proof, evidence of today's theatrical script. And the script involves the words endless wars. Why can I find so many examples of people saying endless wars? And you know what's even better than the endless wars? You know what's funnier? When somebody says something stupid and then they come back because they've been a politician for a long time and they know they can do this. And they say, I need another take. You guys ever been around movies, right? They'll do multiple takes. I had the privilege of working on a couple different movies. And then also I used to work for Warner Brothers. Takes. It's like, let's do the scene. We set it all up. Background. That means everyone in the background starts moving. Okay. And then this scene, whatever, take 6, go, action, boom. And then they go forward and then they deliver the lines. Here's Chuck Schumer delivering his lines. Not getting it right. Let's do a take 2. I kid you not. He's going to take 2 runs at this one. Oh, that's not it. Here he is. Boom. Endless wars. Take 1 and 2.
Do you think Israel, forced the U.S.'s hand here, boxed the U.S. in on this?
Look, no one wants a nuclear war. No one wants a nuclear Israel, but we certainly don't want an endless war, plain and simple. What did I say?
Nuclear Israel.
Oh, no. Got it. Let me say that again. No one wants an endless war, but we certainly don't want a nuclear Iran. That's for sure. Okay?
At what point does the lack of DHS funding...
All right. So take 1, not good enough. Take 2. Well, let's talk about endless wars. Let's go endless wars. CNN. Could we be talking about that? Where did that talking point come out? Nobody wants an endless war. Scott Jennings.
The idea that this is endless or pointless. It's not endless. It doesn't have to be endless. They have a clear objective to destroy the ballistic missile capability and to further and totally degrade the nuclear capability. And it's that can be done, according to Rubio and others, they think with an air superiority campaign, which is currently working. But no, let me finish. And pointless, with respect, Iran has killed American service members and personnel. They have maimed our people. They have committed terrorism against our people time and time again. They are the destabilizers of the Middle East. This is not starting a pointless war. This is ending a regime that had a point, which is to attack Western civilization.
Okay, so now it's back to ending regimes, but it's also about the nuclear program, but it's also about the short-range ballistic missiles. It's also because Israel backed us into a corner and they were going to attack, which means that Iran was going to attack us as a response. And so we had to attack them preemptively. So we were doing offense instead of defense. We were doing regime change. We were doing ballistic missile capabilities. We were obliterating a nuclear program. We were doing the regime change. We were doing the missiles. We were going after the Navy. We were going to sink all their ships so they can't cause problem. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay, so like we just keep going back and forth. If it's about regime change, which it does seem like the White House has addressed, what happens if we get like, I don't know, what's the worst case scenario in this? Has anyone thought this out? Sounds like Donald Trump's going to do that one on the fly. Let's see what we think.
Mr. President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. You know, they built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. That would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people.
Oh, guess the worst case would be if we deposed one enemy that we knew we had years and decades worth of understanding, and then when they put in someone new, and then we had to deal with. That's never happened before, right? The United States has never like deposed somebody and then created a power vacuum where somebody else stepped in. How's Libya looking right now? Did we do that in Libya? That was awesome. What about didn't we actually help Saddam Hussein get into power before we then had to go and find him in a hole at one point? It's like, oh my God. Okay, I guess the worst thing that could happen is that we just like, create a power vacuum and then some unknown person would step in and that would be even worse than the previous. Yikes. Donald Trump in the White House yesterday. So there you go. Okay. Marco Rubio has decided he's going to try to fix his comments about Israel, backing us into the scenario. The question was, is that what happened? Mike Johnson said it. Marco Rubio said it. I wasn't playing or being deceptively editing of his words. He just said those words. That was yesterday's program. What the F did they just tell us? He's trying to make it better. I don't think he made it better. This was Marco Rubio. We're going to kind of end with a couple thoughts here. He didn't make it better with this statement. He tried to clarify, and I think he said the same thing a second time, probably because that is the answer, which is fine. Just turns out if you try to run away from the answer by giving the answer again in different words, it just doesn't actually work. So here we go. This is Rubio being aggressive with CNN and telling them the answer is the same answer that he said yesterday, but in different words in different ways, so you don't think about it the same way.
I want to just clarify what you said. Because you said clarify. Well, but you said I would get that. No, but you have to read. If you're going to read the whole. But your quote is about we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack.
Yeah, no, I understand. But listen,
forces.
All right, but let me understand.
That's what.
Yeah, but I had a very specific question from that gentleman, right?
The president said. What the president said.
Hold on one second. I asked
a very forced Israelis.
Okay, but let me answer because this is my press conference. Okay. You asked me, I was asked a very specific question. So you guys can misrepresent it, but I was asked a very specific question yesterday. The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. He will always put the safety and security of our men and women in uniform and of all Americans before anything else. He's always going to do that, and that's what he did here. In addition to that, I would argue that this threat from Iran, they are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. And there is no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch.
So the U.S. attack.
All right, okay, just to be clear. We hit them first because they were going to hit us, and that doesn't take away from the fact that they were going to hit us because Israel was going to hit them. which is what he said yesterday. I'll replay it from yesterday. And then Donald Trump, by the way, has the best answer to this, which is funny just because it's Donald Trump. He's like, no, they didn't hit me in the face. I hit them in the face. That's how it works. Just say the opposite of whatever they said. Trump doesn't convince me with that either. Here we go.
The States conducted this operation with a very clear goal in mind. I haven't got a chance to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is...
I'm going to restate it. We did it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. Our goals are to take out their Navy and their naval capabilities. We're going to go and take out their short-range and mid-range ballistic missiles, and we are going after to obliterate, further obliterate, or continue to obliterate their nuclear program. These things have all been stated. Got it. Okay. Why? Why do we have these goals? Oh, we have these goals because we can't have a nuclear Iran or Israel or Iran. We don't want endless wars or whatever the heck that is. The regime is dangerous, and they've been dangerous, and they declared on war on us 47 years ago. And so, okay, we heard that. But why now is the question. And the why now is we thought that we were in danger of being attacked. Why did you think that we were in danger of being attacked? Oh, because Israel was going to launch an attack with or without us. They've been preparing for this for 47 years. And if they do not, if we did not attack first, then we were going to be on the receiving end of Iranian attacks. That's what was said. I'm not phrasing this any way other than they did. I'm just remembering that Donald Trump said for a really long time that he was going to do war, and I'll play you that in a second. But first of all, did Israel push you into this attack, Mr. President? Did you have to take your cues from another tiny little nation state in the Middle East? The answer is I'm not crying. You're crying.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did that pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. And now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that, but they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden they had missiles shot in.
All right. So Donald Trump pushed Israel to act. He had really good, credible information that the Iranians were going to attack first, and that was the goal. And then he was completely caught off guard because the Iranians not just attacking the United States back, but also deciding to send missiles into all kinds of third nations that were not involved otherwise, and that caught him by surprise because his information was so good. Or he got played. He got played and pushed into a corner. Somebody said that we're going to go. You can come with us or not, but we'll use a nuke if we have to, or we can use conventional with your help. And then the United States does what America always does, which is back up Israel's play. I don't know. I'm just saying his answers didn't sound all that convincing. I'm not even sure he believed that. Like, no, they didn't punch me in the face. I punched them in the face. And when I said I punched them in the face, I punched them the hardest that anyone's ever been punched. Got to be surprised, though. I didn't expect him to punch my friends in the face. I didn't expect him to punch anyone else in the face. I had really good intel that he was going to punch me. That's why I punched him. But right after punching him, I was totally surprised to see that he started punching anything he could see. He just punched all over the place. So my intel was questionable on that stuff. It was really good on the preemptive strike, but also not so good on the response. You'd think that I would know more about the response, but I didn't. Hopefully the worst thing doesn't happen. Someone else steps up into the punching gap and becomes the new puncher. That would be rad. We would not like it if some other puncher came in. At least we voted for peace, right?
I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. People don't believe that. I am peace.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a man who wants to end wars, not start them.
We do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace. The Iranians are clearly not very good at war. Perhaps they should follow President Trump's lead and give peace a chance.
Kamala's campaigning with warmongers like Liz Cheney. How do you think that is? She picks Liz Cheney, whose father virtually destroyed the Middle East. You know, Liz Cheney, she talks big, oh, I want war. She always wants war. Every time I was with her in the White House, we should attack this nation, that nation, nations that people never even heard of, we should attack. She's a big tough guy. She sits back in Washington, oh, we ought to go and attack Iran, Iraq. We're going to attack everybody. That's why I broke up with her. All she wanted to do is go to war with everybody. These war hawks, they want to draft your kids to die in wars, and they will never fight themselves. You know, we'll stay around the country for 15 years, just bomb the hell out of everybody, make everybody miserable. Nobody knows why we're there, you know, the wars that never end. These endless wars that we've been in, I've gotten us out of so many. We don't want to get into wars. We're tired of fighting. I'm the only president in the last 84 years that didn't start a war. Under Trump, we will have no more wars. No more wars. No more wars. We will have prosperity and peace. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Remember, I'm the president of peace. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. He's going to start a war. I said, no, no, no. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
Ouch! Donald Trump from the top rope, smashing down on Donald Trump. Dropsite News put that compilation together. Midterms are coming. John Carter is going to be my representative at 85 years old. Maybe they're worried they can't get elected any other way. I have a really ridiculously weird, totally off-topic palate cleanser for you guys today because we need it, and it's really funny. And I guess it's sort of in light of a nice card that my father sent my wife the other day. And it said something about how much he appreciated her being my wife, which I think is really cool. I think it's really important that your family loves your spouse if your family is, if their opinion is useful to you. There's certain family members, obviously, that are not. But this one is pretty funny. And it's really strange. And it's not about any political topic today at all. It's about the potato famine in Ireland. So we won't rile up anybody, I don't think. Check out our Spotify, KyleSerafinshow.com. Check out the Tackleberry Project, which is at I Am Your Tackleberry, TACKLEBERRY. I'm Your Tackleberry. It's on YouTube. It's on Rumble. We're going to start putting stuff on there very shortly. Just letting you guys know that's coming up. Let's do something funny. God knows we need it. This is a strange, funny. This one has everything. It's got ex-girlfriend who's got a big rack who nobody likes. It's got dad with conspiracy theories that may or may not be true. It's got girlfriend siding with the dad. You thought you were getting into an argument, and now you brought in another ally for your father, and it's about the potato famine. It's got some history and some weird conspiracies I didn't even know existed. Let's go.
Why are you breathing like that?
It's just my dad has these insane opinions.
You see, there's actually no record of it ever even happening.
Last time I brought a girl home, she broke up with me afterwards.
Well, we're forced to buy into this victim complex.
So that's who's on your mind? Daniela and her globular bazongas?
No.
Even though deep down everybody knows there's no such thing as the Irish potato famine. Bullshit. Never happened.
My dad's just joking. It was a really hard time for that country.
Yeah, but what do you mean there's no record?
There is a record. The infection of the potato plant with the blight virus, paired with Ireland's single crop dependence and the system of absentee landlords, all contributed.
Single crop dependence? What are we, 2?
Oh my God.
Listen, do you eat the same thing every day?
No.
No, but you'd be a moron if you did, though, right?
Dad.
So now imagine somebody told you that a whole country had the same ridiculous idea together.
I guess that is kind of a stretch, yeah.
Denise.
What?
They weren't just eating potatoes. The British exported all the other food.
But why did they just hide the other food?
They couldn't. The land was under British occupation.
You just said the landlords weren't even there.
He did. Bingo bango.
No, not bingo bango. I can't believe you're taking his side right now.
There's no side.
Yeah, we're just trying to get to the truth.
Yeah, well, they want that to be illegal.
Yeah, especially him.
Yeah, he hates the truth.
Doesn't even matter what the topic is. What? Come on, it's just us.
Ah, he's scared.
I'm not scared.
Okay. All I'm saying is 1 million dead is a little absurd.
What do you think the real number is?
I don't know, like 3?
Wow.
What? You know, it's not even about the numbers. People just can't admit that the famine was a convenient excuse for the Irish to come here and use American resources.
No, they moved here to start a new life and not be bossed around by England anymore.
Yeah, thanks to us.
Exactly.
Bet they love that.
You know what? I'm not comfortable being part of this discussion. You can Uber back if you want. I'm out.
Okay. You know, you are so much cooler than, what's her face?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's really troubling. Probably you guys didn't hear this, but it's the third time that I've seen that one. The most upsetting thing about that entire video is that the guy calls her the name Denise, which was the name of the woman with the big breasts previously. That was the girlfriend. And so he calls her by the wrong name and she doesn't react because they got their scripting wrong, which makes me think that whole thing was a psyop. But it is really troubling when your wife or girlfriend starts siding with your dad on things where you know you're right. I once told my wife that she was not my dad and she couldn't tell me what to do. And my dad piped up from the other room and said, she is your dad. And then she told me she is my dad. And then I had to do what they said, which that's rough. That's rough to find out that they're going to gang up on you like that. I feel for that guy. Also, now I'm doubting whether the potato famine took place. Single crop dependency and absentee landlord doesn't seem like a good argument to me. I got things to look up. I hope you guys do too. I hope you guys had fun. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you guys for the rest of this week. God knows what kind of slop they're serving up, but we're going to try to cut through it and get something, let's just get to the meat and the potatoes, not just potatoes, because we could all go hungry and die. All right. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the other end.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.